Sorry about that. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of The Log Show here live on YouTube and live on TikTok for those of you viewing over there. It's only my second week over there, so let me know how all that stream quality is going in the chat, everything like that. Please keep me updated about how everything is going over there on the TikTok, on the YouTube. I'm having trouble seeing the chat over there. I hope everything is going smoothly over on the YouTube. I have my own ways of trying to monitor it. Not going very smoothly as I see right now, but hopefully it could pick itself up as we have a great show for you guys here today. Hopefully I could get the clips and everything I need to out afterwards. But what a week in sports we had in the NFL. We had so many games with such great playoff implications, and a lot of them were exciting to watch. Last night we got the Monday Night Football game where we finally saw a Philadelphia Eagles team and the offense not look atrocious. That was the best I think I've seen the Eagles offense look all year, even though they suffered the loss in overtime last night. And I know you have Jalen Hurts, obviously, with the multiple interceptions. So you must be saying, Logan, how do you think the Eagles offense looked good last night? I'll explain that. Not only did we have the Eagles offense look good in a loss last night, but going back to Sunday, the Bills and the Bengals in a snowy classic put on such a good game as the Bills come back from being down at half in that one and get a huge victory over a Cincinnati Bengals team that is trying to put a playoff push together. The Pittsburgh Steelers win in their matchup that had huge playoff implications over the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers are able to squeeze out and hold off the Ravens late in that one. The Jaguars rout the Colts as Danny Dimes goes down with an injury. We'll talk about that, what the Colts are doing now. I don't know if anybody saw the great breaking news as the Colts have planned to and officially announced, or at least it is being reported by both Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, that the Indianapolis Colts are planning to sign 44-year-old quarterback out of retirement, Philip Rivers. So that is interesting. We'll break down how that looks for the Colts as they try to make a playoff push late here. Packers get a big win. Chiefs suffer a very tough loss on Sunday Night Football and so much more. Not only that, UFC 323 saw results that I don't think many of us planned to think or planned out in our heads that were going to happen. A lot of crazy results in UFC 323. Congratulations to Joshua Van on being the new flyweight champion. Congratulations to Piotr Jan on being the new bantamweight champion. Congratulations to Peyton Talbot on getting a big win. And congratulations, even though he lost to Peyton Talbot, congratulations to Henry Cejudo on a great retirement. Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy week. Not only that, shout out my dad. Happy birthday, Dad. It is my father's birthday, so I just want to give him a quick shout out. Happy birthday, Dad. I do, everybody loves their fathers. Everybody who's grateful enough to know and have their fathers loves their fathers. It's a very grateful thing to have, so appreciate them while they are here, while they are around. It is a blessing to have a dad in your life. Happy birthday, Dad. Um, but yeah, on to that. Back to football. I'll start with talking about last night in this Philadelphia Eagles game, where yes, we do see Jalen Hurts throw 4 interceptions against the Los Angeles Chargers last night. But nonetheless, with those 4 interceptions, it was the offense actually kind of looked cohesive for once, in my opinion, with that Philadelphia Eagles offense. You finally got to see the Eagles. Um, the play action looked a lot better. You saw a few of those big plays by Saquon. He has that one touchdown late. You saw a lot of positive notes for the Philadelphia Eagles offense here, finally, at least. Something that I feel like we haven't been able to see all year out of the Philadelphia Eagles is the ability for that offense to really get going. Yes, you have the 4 Jalen Hurts interceptions, and when you really break them down and look at them, there's been something that I've said for years, and I think a lot of football fans have said, and I would love the NFL or media, whoever controls how the recorded stats go and what recorded stats are and aren't. I do think that there should be some sort of declaration of interceptions that, yes, go to the defense, and maybe we don't have to blame them on wide receivers, even though they might be wide receivers talk or my wide receivers' fault. I apologize. I do think that there should be a group of interceptions that realistically we should let just be blamed and a good thing for the defense and not necessarily this terrible thing for the for the quarterback. Because when you look at Jalen Hurts last night, there's that first interception that he throws that like I'll break it down one by one. And when we start with the first one, that one is Jalen Hurts' fault. You know, they're in cover zero. You see the safeties slide down. You got to know that there's going to be no safeties over the top. Instead, he feels the pressure. He feels rushed. He gets uncomfortable and he throws an interception on a short in across the middle that was being completely covered by the rolling down it was actually a DT that drops back and gets the interception on that play. So that one is 100% Jalen Hurts misreading the defense. Then you go to the second interception that he throws, and that one is a play that happens, but it's not necessarily Jalen Hurts' fault. It's a timing route on a curl to Devonta Smith. It's a ball that's thrown well in a good spot to Devonta Smith's outside shoulder when when the cornerback has inside leverage. So you're in a good spot for a good ball, and it just happens that your receiver slips. Like, is that really Jalen Hurts' fault? No, I wouldn't necessarily blame that one on Jalen Hurts. The second one you have literally hits A.J. Brown in the hands. Is it a great throw? No. By all means, that is not a great throw. It is 100% a ball that is thrown way too high that A.J. Brown tried to have to make a play to try to go get. But the ball hit his hands, and not only like, it wasn't like a tipped his finger hit his hands. Like, it hit his hands cleanly when he got up there. He jumped well, he high pointed the ball well, and he got to the ball. And it just happened to slip through his hands and fall in the hands of a defender. That one is not Jalen Hurts' fault. Now, obviously, some interceptions do mean more than others. And in the final interception, last one of the game, that one is Jalen Hurts' fault. That is 100% a forced ball down the sideline that he wants to make a play on, that he doesn't go completely through all of his reads. He forces that ball to, I believe it was A.J. Brown, if I remember correctly, on the comeback route. And it's a great play made by the defensive back to get an interception and win the game for the Los Angeles Chargers. So when I really look at the way that the Philadelphia Eagles offense played in that loss, it's the most positive I've felt about the Philadelphia Eagles so far this year, going through week after week, how I have felt about this offense. I think many people have said to me that, this offense or not. Yeah, I mean, have said to me, I've said to many people as well that this offense feels like watching paint dry. This offense is just boring and it's just not moving well. And it's just time after time it felt like this, that it was like there was a meme going on even on TikTok that I saw a few times that was it was this audio over multiple games of the Philadelphia Eagles that was run up the middle Saquon, run up the middle Saquon, deep ball to AJ Brown, run up the middle Saquon, run up the middle. And that's what the offense felt like. It felt boring, it felt predictable. It felt like just the same old. They have the old saying of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what the Philadelphia Eagles offense felt like. It felt like insanity. It felt like they were doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, and they weren't getting it. And last night against the Chargers, you finally started to see a tad bit of the folds of this Philadelphia Eagles offense that is a positive step forward. Yes, do I think this loss puts the conference at a bit of a far step for them to go win the conference now? I do very much believe that. I do think that now winning the NFC and getting that bye week is a little bit of a stretch for the Philadelphia Eagles when you're so far behind the Rams and the Seahawks who are fighting for that NFC West. But to say that they've necessarily lost the division yet, well, obviously they haven't. They still are in the lead. But to say that they are a lost cause and that they're going to lose this division, and, people were comparing them to the 2023 team. I saw that on Get Up this morning about uh Is that what this feels like? A team that's suffering a Super Bowl hangover, and it's not doing as well, and the defense got ripped apart a little bit during the offseason, and I see the similarities, but I think that this team is a little bit better in its perseverance, and I think I see this Eagles team as much as it was on this steady decline week after week that I felt like they got consistently got more boring and boring and boring over and over again. I do feel like that now when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, you are seeing a situation where you are now seeing them uh you are now seeing them really find their own footing and get back to that Eagles offense that we really felt last year. I do think that there's their own issues in how the receiving core is playing. I think their own interesting issues on how to handle the AJ Brown situations as the season winds down and you move on to that. But that is a future issue to address. He's on your team for now. There's nothing you could do about that. Yes, he didn't play his greatest game last night. I believe he had 3 drops last night. Um, one of like a couple of which were touchdown plays that he's dropped. So, you look at that for the Philadelphia Eagles, and there's folds that you still definitely have to unfold and figure out if you were the Philadelphia Eagles. But nonetheless, I think last night is as positive as a loss can get, as well as the Cowboys losing on Thursday. So you still had a little bit of room for this loss, even though the Cowboys are still hot. They played very well against the Lions on Thursday. But you find yourself in the position here of the Philadelphia Eagles that if you could catch yourself at the right moment, at the right time, and the right falling, maybe you can be this Super Bowl team that you have not looked like through 13 weeks of NFL football. And I think a lot of people are going to agree on that sentiment that there's no way, I don't think anybody has felt that the Philadelphia Eagles have looked like a Super Bowl team through 13 weeks of football. And when you sit back and watch what they were able to do last night, I think it's as positive as you can take from a loss if you are the Eagles. I think they're ironed out. Obviously, in every game like that, you have to iron stuff out. You have to take your time and just figure out the wrinkles, and you can't have those plays obviously where AJ Brown drops the ball 4 times, one of which ends up in an interception. You can't have 5 turnovers if you're Jalen Hurts. So there are obviously other issues that I want to say. I don't want to say the Philadelphia Eagles looked unreal last night, but they were playing a very good defense. You saw it on the other side as well. Justin Herbert didn't play the great game, a great game, because they were playing a very good defense. But everybody is talking about Justin Herbert this morning a lot different than they're talking about Jalen Hurts. And I do want to put the sentiment out there that I do feel like that they played an equal footing game last night. As much as it looked like Jalen Hurts' game was a lot worse, especially if you're one of those stat mongers who just read the stat book after a game and maybe you didn't watch the whole game last night or rewatch it this morning, whatever, your schedule allows you to do. If you just look at the stat sheets, you're going to go, well, Jalen Hurts had 4 interceptions last night, had 5 turnovers. But, he looked, I think, as well as he has all year. And going back to a couple other games, when you look back at this past weekend, a lot of things shocked us. I don't think a lot of people expected to see the Jaguars perform as well as they did against that Indianapolis Colts team, even though, yes, you have Daniel Jones go down early with the Achilles injury that we didn't know was a torn Achilles at the time. We were hoping to see what was going to happen there through Daniel Jones, and sadly, it is an Achilles injury as after he was having such a fantastic season. You really hate to see something like that happen, but it really opened the window up for the Jacksonville Jaguars and that defense to really start breaking those doors down against the Indianapolis Colts and take a full game lead over those Colts for that division after everyone, at one point, felt like the Colts had the whole AFC on lock, not even the division. People felt like they had the whole AFC on lock, besides maybe the Patriots, but people thought the Patriots might fall off. And no, here we are sitting here going into week 14 or week 15, I believe. Uh, and we're looking at the Colts now in a wild card position, no longer in first. not only in the conference, but not in first in their own division. And this Jaguars team has gotten better and better by the week. They're one of the best defenses in the league. I think the defense has improved immensely week after week. Shout out what Coach Anthony Campanella has going on down there. And it's just been an absolute great showing for the Jacksonville Jaguars, where you had Travis Hunter go down a few weeks ago, and he was an impact player for your team, but you've had multiple players step up. You've had Jacoby Myers step up since he's been traded there. You've had a lot of different pieces on this Jaguars team. Obviously, ETN is having a great season. And then defensively, people like Oluwakan and other pieces on the defense have played exceptional for this Jacksonville team, and it's put them in a first place position that I don't know how you guys feel, you guys that are watching in the chat and stuff like that, how you guys feel, but, um, the AFC is a very interesting spot, and I think they're showing that the AFC is the conference of the future, where you're seeing, yeah, it matters what the Colts do. That's going to be a whole interesting situation as they sign Philip Rivers. About an hour and a half ago to 2 hours ago, they made that signing, and you now have Daniel Jones out with the Achilles tear that happens on. It happens in a bad part of the year. The Achilles tear happens on December 7th, or on December 7th, and you look at that, and it's a 10-month recovery. So you're looking at, more likely than not, at the start of next season, Daniel Jones not being available to play for the Indianapolis Colts if they choose to re-sign him through the injury as well. Which, I mean, I'm assuming with the way he played, out of respect, the way that Chris Ballard runs the team over there and all of that, they will find a mutual agreement of, we understand, Danny, that you were going to get your money this year, but now there's obviously another risk that we have to play into. So we can't pay you that, but we loved you here. We loved what you did here. We loved what you brought into the locker room, how you took over as a leader immediately upon your arrival to Indianapolis and really took the next step in your career here. So we'd love to bring you back. I would not be surprised for Chris Ballard to say that to Daniel Jones and then re-sign him this offseason. But you look at that situation for the Colts, and you're now back where almost you were last year when looking at a quarterback situation, and you felt so confident in what was going on there. Um, in that situation, and now you're out Riley Leonard, you're out Daniel Jones until possibly October of next year if you're lucky. You you have a lot of questions if you're the Colts, and you look at that whole AFC, and it just seems that everyone else is starting to make those steps towards solidifying who they are. Um, I think it's an interesting thing that I heard said recently this week. I don't remember who said it, but how the AFC, just all those teams that we felt were solidifying themselves as powerhouses in the AFC as of last year, have not done so this year. And we are seeing a big rotation of teams in the AFC that feel a lot younger than the ones of last. You're seeing the Chiefs struggle. You're seeing on the NFC side the Eagles struggle. You're seeing uh the Bills are not at first in the AFC East as much as they are a playoff team right now. You are seeing the Ravens struggle. You're seeing these teams that a lot of people felt were certified powerhouses in the AFC be at the bottom of the playoff standings, and some of them not even in the playoffs. And you're seeing these young teams really step up, as, yeah, some of them have had easier schedules. I think it's been a big sentiment on Twitter and the internet recently. Everyone's talking about how they feel the Patriots might be frauds because of the way that their schedule has been going. A lot of people feel that way about the Denver Broncos because of the way that their schedule has played out, and the overall records of the teams that they have played. Uh, there's a lot of that around the league. There really is when you break it down, but you look at these teams that are at the top of the AFC, you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. You look at the Indianapolis Colts. You look at the New England Patriots. You look at the Los Angeles Chargers. You look at the Denver Broncos. These are teams that are young, all of them pretty young quarterbacks. I think out of that group, the oldest quarterback I said is probably Daniel Jones or maybe Justin Herbert. You have Trevor Lawrence feeling like he's finally settling into his own over there under Liam Cohen and that whole offense. You have, like I said, you have the Buffalo Bills too, who have been one of those powerhouses over the past year. This AFC just seems so young and ready to go that I'm excited to see how those playoffs really turn out. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on the New England Patriots because of how dominant they have been. But again, you look at their schedule, you've played the Jets, you've played the Dolphins twice, you blew out the Giants, you blew out the Browns, there's not a lot of impressive wins. You beat the Saints. There's not a whole lot of impressive wins on that New England Patriots resume necessarily, but that's not NFL football. This ain't getting wins for the committee at the end of the day. It's your record is what matters. And they've won a ton of games and done it very, very, very convincingly to show that they are the favorites to win the Super Bowl as of right now. I have friends talking to me consistently, people around me talking to me consistently, looking at me going, hey, there's no way this Patriots team doesn't win the Super Bowl. It seems like they're back, man. And a lot of people feel that way about the Patriots. And I feel like there's some just natural ready to go bias with the Patriots because we're so used to the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era of just, oh, they're back. Oh, it's the Patriots. Oh, the Patriots are back. Here they go again. And I think a lot of people are brainwashed to feel that same way about this Patriots team. Well, no, they are under a new regimen, under Vrabel, still Kraft, obviously, there, but they're under Vrabel, under the young and upcomer and Drake May, as the kids call him today. So it's an interesting situation as you sit here and you just look at the AFC and how it's built out and how the playoffs are gonna come together and really who's really going to win the AFC? I'm someone who does say at the end of the day that experience matters in the playoffs. And I don't know, maybe I'm just a stubborn dog who can't change his ways. And I've picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl like 4 out of the last 5 years. So God forbid I'm going to keep doing it until they win the Super Bowl. Maybe I am stuck in my old ways like that. And I've been so sold on this Josh Allen Bills team for so long. And I've been so ready for them to win a Super Bowl. And they keep disappointing me that's why I keep having them as my picks over and over again to win Super Bowls and make Super Bowls. But they do still feel like, to me, the most complete team in the AFC to go win that AFC championship due to experience and age and a lot of the stuff like that. And I think it depends on, yeah, how maybe the playoffs lay out, but I do think the Bills are equipped to go up to a Denver and win. They are equipped to go up to a New England and win. I think if you look at some of the other teams, Baltimore, no. Colts, especially now with you have the Colts sitting there with now Philip Rivers as their starting quarterback. So there's no doubt in my mind that I feel that we have seen them writ off. Their Super Bowl hopes have since hopped on the bus to Cancun as much as they may make the playoffs. And who knows? Yeah, people said the same thing about the Eagles back in 2018 when you saw Carson Wentz go down and Nick Foles had to step in. But I think all is said and done for now for the Indianapolis Colts now that you're going to see a 44-year-old Philip Rivers who hasn't played football in 3 years hop in and be their starting quarterback. So obviously I don't see that there for them. The Jacksonville Jaguars, as much as I just went on a rant about how much I do love that team, I do not think they're ready for that Super Bowl run quite yet. So when you look at this AFC side of the playoffs, I can't help but to be excited because of those things. This playoff build feels a lot like the year that, if you guys remember, I'm blanking on what year it is off the top of my head. Is it 2021? But when we see that whole run of of the Bengals go and all of that and that whole the build of honestly what we know of the AFC now with that whole situation, I do think that we think of that and this playoff AFC build feels the same as when that foundation was built, when we saw Joe Burrow break onto the scene and Lamar finally hit his stride and Josh Allen and Mahomes has been established at that point, but he's not playing against Brady and Ben anymore. Now he's playing against the other guys and all of that really built up, and I think we're seeing a similar thing there in the AFC. Uh, yeah, Ryan over there on TikTok. Shout out Ryan Lockard. I haven't talked to you in a minute. Good to see you in the chat, my man. But yeah, I definitely do want to talk about that. Sorry to get off topic. I know I'm on football, but I'm just seeing that in the chat here. Man, Giannis to the Knicks. I mean, I hope every day I still get the alert of Giannis being traded to my New York Knicks. I would really love to see it. Uh, I think as I read more and more articles, as I'm pulling one up now because you have me thinking of the trade, I just can't help but think about the build of what Giannis could bring to this team. I think as much as I love to watch the Knicks of this year, I like how Mike Brown is really running the team. I like that we're seeing the bench unit of the New York Knicks finally get an opportunity to shine through back when Jalen Brunson was suffering through his injuries. We're able to get more rest. The team doesn't feel as tired and as dependent on a Jalen Brunson success to get a win. You know, we've seen Mikal Bridges over the past few nights have a handful of good games, even though a few of those have been losses. You've seen a lot of pieces, and I think what comes down to it at the end of the day is what the Giannis trade is for me. I think there's a lot of different avenues for what Giannis can bring to this Knicks team and what can happen. I think where the conversations are going to start is the Milwaukee Bucks are going to try no matter what to get Jalen Brunson out of the trade, and I don't think that any Knicks fan at this point would be happy if you allow that to happen. Now, I have weird views on that, because I think that Giannis complements Karl Anthony Towns in a perfect way, but that doesn't necessarily have. With that thought, I still necessarily haven't convinced myself enough that the complement of Giannis and Cat is good enough to deal with trading Jalen and less pieces to go get a Giannis. I think, like you're saying, like if Jalen and Giannis can stay healthy, I think Giannis complements Jalen Brunson in a very similar way that he complements Karl Anthony Towns. So to get rid of Karl Anthony Towns for the Giannis, I think it really is when I just sit here and I really think about the trade. It's how much of our future are we giving up? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of now given up in that pick or in that trade. And that is going to be that is needed to be done to go get a generational super like just a good player here when I talk about Giannis. Like we are talking about a dude that anybody who has eyes when they watch the Milwaukee Bucks play basketball, you can't help but be enamored by as my generation's favorite 2K YouTuber Flight would say, you can't help but be enamored by the 910 Acumpo. You know, you can't help but you look at that situation of Giannis Antetokounmpo and help but just the way that he takes over a game and is so dominant and what that could bring to the New York Knicks on both sides of the floor obviously puts the Knicks in this next level of competition that it's championship or bust at that point. You're not happy that you beat the Celtics if you bring in Giannis. So, how many of those first round picks am I giving up? Because right now, I feel like it's going to be at least 5. You know, you're giving up Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and 3 first round picks. And if you don't want to give up that many good pieces, then you're switch out, Josh Hart for a Deuce McBride, but you're giving up 4 pick swaps and a second. You know what I say? You know what I'm saying? Like you're giving up your entire future for this. So you better go win a championship. That's the only way. That's the only thing I say about it. I'm obviously there is nothing I can say that is against me wanting Giannis to the New York Knicks. I can't help but love the idea. It's like when you don't get these types of players up for trade often. Like you don't the availability of Giannis is not something that happens often, and it's something that you have to take the opportunity of. He wants to be a New York Knick. It is known. No other teams are even trying, at least in the major media. It is not coming out that any other teams are even really trying to pursue a Giannis. You have a lot of advantages. One of the advantages that you have, the biggest advantage, is an off the court advantage. And it's the fact that he is an easy way home. Because in case you guys don't know this about Giannis, Giannis likes to go home to Greece. He currently lives in Greece in the offseason. He goes there all the time on extended time off, even during the season. There is one city that has an airport with a direct flight to Greece, and that is the city of New York. You have off the court advantages that make Giannis want to be here. Take advantage while you can. James Dolan and the New York Knicks. I know it's difficult when you look at the landscape of what you have done and what you have built here as the New York Knicks. There's a lot of pride that you have to give up to be able to trade something that you honestly, for the most part, built yourself. From the moment you brought in Julius Randle and you started to really get a vibe with the Julius Randle teams before you brought in Jalen Brunson, before you brought in these types of people. Jalen Brunson was 2 years after that. You have those types of sets that I get it as James Dolan and the New York Knicks. You are very, very, very proud of what you have built, and it takes a lot of guts, and it takes a lot of self reflection to be able to go, I built this. It's like selling a business. You know what I mean? It's like selling a business to a big corporation. It's not easy to do. It's your baby. You know, this is James Dolan's baby. It's not easy to give your baby away for a price tag that, you built this into something great. And you beat the Celtics last year. And you finally got your coach. And you've done a lot of great things. Don't be afraid to sell it for billions and go get Giannis. Giannis is billions of dollars. Don't be afraid to sell what you've built for billions. Because what the result is on the other side is the first championship in New York in the past in past 35 years for the city of New York. And when I tell you, I might not be a Giants fan or a Jets fan, so I don't know how the city would react to a Jets championship. But when I tell you that there is no team that breathes life into the city of New York like the New York Knicks do, it's not the same, man. And I don't get me wrong, I love the New York Yankees so much. I love what the way the city rallies around the New York Yankees. But naturally, since the Dodgers moved from Brooklyn to Los Angeles, and then the New York Mets were incentivized. Since that's what I'm saying. Since you go back to the Giants and the Dodgers being in New York in baseball, New York has been a split city for baseball. When you go back to the Jets and the Giants throughout the AFC and the National Football League and the merger, New York has always been a split city. I'm sorry to the Nets. New York is not a split city when it comes to basketball. New York roots for the New York Knicks. The Brooklyn Nets are New Jersey's team. I say it to this day. I think they should move back to the Prudential Center. I think the Brooklyn Nets should move back to New Jersey, but that's besides the point. Go bring a team or a championship, please. I beg of you, please. Bring a championship to New York. And it's all we want, man. It's all anybody wants is just that one. What that would do for the city, bro. Oh my God. I could only imagine what 7th and Broadway would be like if that. Oh my God. Just think of it during the. Bro, we made the Eastern Conference Finals and started naming streets after players on the team. Imagine what the city's going to do if we win the championship. Whew. That's how I feel about that Giannis situation, honestly. But yeah. I mean, moving on from that, I do also want to talk about yeah, big weekend over there in the UFC over in Vegas as we saw two championships change hands. One of which is because of a tragic situation. The other one was what I tried to say last week for those of you who did watch through the struggling video, who I hope is working well this week. I hope the video is going well over there on the YouTube and on the TikTok. If anybody in the chat wants to tell me, I know I'm seeing this a little later, but I'm constantly just seeing reconnection, disconnection in the back. So I think that I'm just cutting in and out at this point, at least video wise. I hope that everything else is working well. Sorry about that with my connection, as I finally got OBS working. I just need to go get some new Wi-Fi. I'm probably going to go get a personal router or something like that soon. Sorry to get off topic there, but back to what I was talking about the UFC 223, as we saw Piotr Jan beat Merab Dvalishvili handedly by unanimous decision in that bantamweight championship fight. I don't like that they had Sugar Sean go in the octagon afterwards, because I think when you look at that fight, Merab did what Merab does, and his gas tank went the whole entire fight. Merab fought until he couldn't anymore. Merab was definitely struggling a lot. You know, Piotr Jan had figured out Merab as much as possible, but a great performance out of Piotr Jan, to finally find what seems to be the formula of beating Merab Dvalishvili and ending that title reign that a lot of people didn't know that could happen. I said it last week. That's what I was getting into. Was Merab Dvalishvili um was fighting someone who I felt was the most equipped to beat him. I think Piotr Jan, from a similar region of the world too, funny enough. But I do think Piotr Jan, when you look at that whole situation, was the most equipped to beat him. I think Piotr Jan is the best wrestling. I think Piotr Jan has the most similar gas tank to Merab. I think he has a very similar striking style. I think he game plans very well for fights, and you saw that in this Merab fight. He game planned for Merab perfectly. And what the game plan for Merab was if he tries to get close to you, just kick the shit out of him, man. Those body kicks were devastating. You know, he was tapping him up the whole time. And this was something else that I felt was going to be a big thing going into the fight. He was able to defend the Merab Dvalishvili takedown extremely well. You know, Rob usually is someone who's very good at getting these inside trips and these takedowns against the cage. And Piotr Jan just constantly did a good job at spreading his feet, getting low, and not letting Merab get the leverage to be able to get these takedowns that he usually is able to get. You know, you saw the one where, and it kind of felt like, even watching the fight, it felt like Jan almost let him get that one, where you saw the one where he absolutely just carries him into the middle. You know, you see the Merab signature move, but outside of that, you didn't see that a lot. You saw Jan honestly felt like he was getting better work with the takedowns and all of that. And throughout the fight, you just felt it more comfortably. You know, I was on my way to the bar to go see some friends and stuff like that. So I did miss only the first round of that fight, but all the scorecards had Piotr Jan winning the first round. And it was just an absolute, you know, a lot of those judges had him winning 4 out of 5 rounds, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. I thought the fight was 2-2 going into out of the 4 rounds that I saw, but I do think that the third round was definitely a flip-floppy round. Um, I think that the fourth round or the fifth round was a flip-floppy round as well. I think you could very easily rewatch that fight and say that Piotr Jan won 4 out of 5 rounds. I think at worst he won 3 out of 5 of those rounds, and he deserves to be the champion. So shout out Piotr Jan. Um, Congratulations to him as he gets his second stint with the bantamweight belt. It seems like they set up the winner of Song Yadong versus Sean O'Malley will get a shot at the title. I don't love the thought of that. I do really think that we should run this one back before we do anything else along those lines. But I don't. I like the idea of Piotr Jan as a champion. I think Jan's very good. I think the last time we saw Jan as a champion was he lost his belt due to an illegal knee. And yes, did he lose that second fight to Aljo? I think he did 100%. And Aljo then loses to Sean O'Malley, and then Sean O'Malley then loses to Marab, and here we are. Uh Jan has already lost to Sean O'Malley, but but I mean Piotr Jan. Sorry, I keep wanting to say Marab when I'm thinking of Piotr Jan, but I think Jan is a great fighter for that bantamweight division, as someone who's very versatile, someone who's very good on the feet, who can take down, who can wrestle very well, has an extremely good gas tank, constantly go fights in these 5 round fights that go to decision. He likes to drag out fights, has had many good fights. So I think that he's gonna have hopefully a nice fun championship reign here, but I do think the first fight that he should have is give Marab plenty of time to recover and get that rematch done. I don't think Sean O'Malley, even beating Song Yadong, deserves a title shot immediately over the former champion at all. I think that's a ridiculous thing to do if you're Dana White and you're just buying into hype and just really trying to get Sugar Sean back in these major fights, which I get it. You need pay-per-view buys, but I think Marab, after his title reign, has become just as much as a star for the UFC. I think a lot of people like Marab, who has a great personality. So I don't think getting him back in the octagon is a bad idea. When you look at the flyweight division, you're in a little bit more of a hole because of what happened there. And that sucks for Pantoja. Congratulations to Joshua Van on getting the championship win there due to TKO on a takedown where apparently it was his shoulder pops out of the socket. I think everybody with eyes it says it's the elbow. The doctor said it was the shoulder. Whatever it was, you have Pantoja suffer the clean dislocation with multiple torn ligaments. So it seems that he is now going to be out for multiple months. So Joshua Van, in that situation, has probably will get a title defense before the rematch happens there, as much as everybody knows that Pantoja will get a rematch once he's recovered. You're more likely than not going to see a Joshua Van defense just because it's going to take Pantoja 9, maybe 10 months to recover from everything, get into a full training camp, and get back to fighting ability. So that really sucks there, but Joshua Van, nonetheless, a very young kid, gets his title belt. Demetrius Johnson said it the best way when he was talking about the event in his YouTube review and breakdown of the whole thing. It sucks for Alexander Pantoja that he lost that way. But there's no sucky way to win. You won the belt, kid. Congratulations. You won the belt. Now go defend the belt. Go see what you can do. Demetrius Johnson jokingly, and a lot of people are having different reactions to him after the dislocation happens, going, well, the 11th defense is stand strong. And I think the people who are overreacting to that take away that these are some of the most competitive people on the entire planet, and nobody wants to see their record broken. I hate that. I hate that sentiment of people of like that legends should want to see their record broken. Like, no. Like, I don't want no. I want my name in the record book. I don't want to see my if I have the most title defensive of all time and some dude has 10 title defenses and I have 11, I'm rooting for the other guy to beat him in the 10 title defense. Like I am. I don't want my records broken. And I don't get the sentiment of the legend should want the next generation to be able to beat their record. I don't get that whole thing. But yeah. What else happened? Tai Tatsiara gets a big win over Moreno, so maybe he's the next. More likely than not, honestly. Now that I think about it, and I really break down the flyweight division, he probably is the next. Him or Manuel Kopp are probably the next up for the title shot. No, I would say that that's the next. Realistically, the next opportunity for the title shot is one of those two. Is either Emmanuel Kopp or Tatsiara. I'd love to see them fight, maybe in a title eliminator. But Van does Van is Van a good enough champion to warrant title eliminators before someone you could just take someone and maybe just throw him in the octagon against him? I don't think so. So I don't know. That's an interesting situation when you look at how that is. I believe Manuel Kopp fights very soon, if I remember correctly. He fights within the next like 2 weeks. I think he fights on the last event of the year. Like it's not a major event. I believe it's a fight night, but I think he fights on the last fight night of the year next week. So that'll be fun to see. We got to see Talbot. Talbot got a huge win there. That was fun to see. He gets his first win. Cejudo calls it quits after getting his ass kicked by a young kid. To see where they go at Talbot now. Obviously, they put him in the rankings. He's a top 15. You put him against another top 15 guy, I assume. But yeah, the way the UFC is shaping up now is very, very, very interesting. I mean, that's all I got for you guys today. Yeah. Um, I mean, like I said, UFC 223, that one was fun. I can't wait for 224 on Paramount when that comes. That one card is stacked to the brim, and they just keep trying to add more to it. More's coming out about UFC White House as well. So I do want to talk about that soon with you guys. Maybe I'll post a little TikTok about it, get some little content about it, get some opinions out there, see what everybody else feels about what's going on at the UFC White House. Yeah, NFL Week 15 coming up huge. The Knicks got some big games coming up. St. John's finally gets a big win over Ole Miss, over a solid opponent. So I was happy to see that over this past week. Yeah, and shout out John Cena again. I know I did that last week, but Saturday night main event where you're seeing the last match of John Cena, somebody who I appreciate near and dear, very much a childhood hero of mine. So to see him in this final match on Saturday night's main event this Saturday on Peacock will be great to see. I can't wait. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you guys on the TikTok so much for tuning in. Everybody who is in the chat over there, thank you so much for everything. Everybody on the YouTube, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you guys are on TikTok, go subscribe to me over on YouTube. I'm live every Tuesday over there as well. So subscribe to me over there. Check that all out. If you guys are on the YouTube, go follow me on TikTok. I post a little more content on the TikTok, trying to get more clips out there, but it's been a lot very choppy recently as I've switched over to OBS. So I'm trying to get that all situated as we continue here. But thank you guys all for tuning in. I will see you guys all next week on the Log Show. Peace out.